This is Karis Alexander with Deep Truth Media. It is important to note that this system of consciousness is an indoctrination system made up of a womb matrix or universal brain. We experience life through the universal brain, through this web of knowledge, disguised in its many forms as a unified field of consciousness, the Akashic records, this electromagnetic field, consciousness. It is this concept of knowledge and language that infects our individual consciousness, and we forever infect one another through our own consciousness, forever keeping us locked in this womb matrix, forever forgetting our eternal state of nothingness. That which you are is beyond any system of consciousness. You exist outside this womb matrix. This system of consciousness is insignificant in the totality of that which you are. The power control force know your eternal state is beyond the system of consciousness. They know that everything that you believe is made up because they design your reality. They know that reality that they have created for you does not exist as you believe it does. How do these statements make you feel? They know, the power control force, that the five senses in your natural environment is what seduces you into believing that all this is real. How does this make you feel? Are you understanding at a deeper level the con that's being perpetrated on you? And what they have done is to convince humanity to give value to this system of consciousness, which includes all your intellectual systems. Because if you give value to the system, you will defend it. But you have to come to the knowing and truth that you are more valuable than this system of consciousness. You must learn to see that this system is insignificant in terms of who and what you are, and that who and what you are in your eternal state of nothingness is the most valuable. You are exalted. You are supreme. You are beyond all of these made-up concepts, knowledge, and consciousness. You are more than your personal story. Who would you be without your personal story? Nothing. And that's quite alarming for those who are still immersed in ego consciousness. And yet, it is these narratives and scripts that are being perpetrated on you that keep you forever forgetting the truth, who and what you are. Dean Radin, PhD chief scientist at the Institute of Noetic Sciences and best-selling author of Conscious Universe, in his latest book, Supernormal, states, "It took a half a millennium for science to learn enough about magnetism to make it practically useful. And unlike PSI, magnetism is easy to demonstrate. Similarly, physicists have developed models for how they think gravity works." Well, they know how gravity works, but we still don't understand what exactly it is. Nor after many decades of intensive work by tens of thousands of scientists funded by the tune of $1 trillion or more do we understand how to cure cancer, because they created cancer. No one has the slightest idea what consciousness is, he states, despite it being the only one and only thing any of us will ever personally know firsthand. Well, he may not know what consciousness firsthand is, or he has a gag order, a PhD chief scientist, and he does not know what consciousness is. He may not know personally what consciousness is, but he studied it enough that he should know that others are experiencing altered states of consciousness. Awareness deconstructing consciousness, Ebola, a lobe, equals the frontal lobe as creator, domain of creation and chain. That's the title of this sharing. It's in the description if you want to read it at your leisure. I'm making a connection to James Holmes' Dark Knight ritual, which I discussed back in 2012. Dark Knight Rises, Aurora Massacre, connection to DNA and ascension. Now, according to news sources, James Holmes was pursuing a neuroscience doctoral program at the University of Colorado's Anschutz Medical Campus. It is the same Anschutz entertainment company who was involved with Michael Jackson's death, by the way. With the worldwide attention now on Ebola currently underway in Africa, which is most likely the next worldwide major pandemic to be consumed by the masses, with more paranoia and fear, if not simply because of the subliminal message attached. Well, let's take a deeper look at the word Ebola. When I looked at the word Ebola, I thought, what a strange name for a disease. It must have some significance. And so I turned it around and read it, a lobe. Well, I went right to the temporal lobe, which I featured in the James Holmes narrative and script. And my writing recently on activity in the brain, I made what I feel a very definitive and what some may feel a very obscure connection with Ebola in the frontal lobe in the brain and center of creativity. activity for human beings. And the power control force, are trying to circumvent our ability to create our reality so that they can keep perpetrating their reality on us. That is from my perspective. Here's a bit of excerpt from my Dark Knight Rises post pertaining to a lobe. The temporal lobe serves as a heart of intuition network and sends us intuitive thoughts, feelings through its connection to our centers in the brain and body. It's important to the visual and auditory experiences and to dreams and intense emotions. It tells us how we feel about something and what we ought to do about it. I am sharing information about what the scientific community is saying about the temporal lobe. I have a different perspective on this. I believe that the intuitive center is in the heart. That's how I experience it, and that it sends information to these lobes, the temporal lobe and the prefrontal lobe. But anyway, that's just my perspective. The temporal lobe also plays a vital role in memory formation, one of the critical elements of the intuition network. It contains the hippocampus, which helps form verbal memories in the brain, and plays an important role in dreaming, and the amygdala, which constructs memories which you can't put into words, which is known as body memory. Some investigators believe the temporal lobe is sensitive to low electromagnetic energy frequencies, the currency in which intuitive information is believed to be transmitted and received. See, this is again another discrepancy based on what I experienced personally. All this has happened in the heart. It's long been noticed that particularly intuitive people have changes in the temporal lobes. It's often speculated that trauma does something to the temporal lobe that ultimately does not allow one greater access to intuition, which is why I believe that we have this Ebola meme transpiring on the physical world stage. Massive subliminal. And now I want to take a deeper look at the frontal lobe so that you can see how you're being scammed through the Ebola, which really is about controlling your lobes through a very powerful subliminal meme. You see, as I'm reading this information that I'm sharing to you, this is from the scientific community, I'm able to see through the deception, because I'm having a different experience. They don't want you having your own experience so that you see through the deception of the system of consciousness. You understand? That's why this Ebola meme is very important to them and will be very significant. Much bigger than the AIDS virus. Have you ever noticed when you are truly in the midst of creating anything, you disassociate from your known world and you forget about yourself? See, they don't want this. You transcend your identity with certain things, your own particular people certain tasks you do, different places you have lived at specific times in your life. When you are in a creative state, you forget about the habit of being yourself, and in that moment you let go of your egoic self and become selfless. You have in fact moved beyond time and space and become pure immaterial awareness. You see, they don't want this happening with their Ebola meme. Once you are no longer connected to your body, no longer focused on people, places, or things, you become awareness. You cannot enter awareness as somebody. You must do it as a nobody. You must leave your egoic self at the door in order to enter the realm of pure awareness. You cannot be in ego consciousness and transcend the system of consciousness. Guaranteed. You must transcend ego consciousness. You must transcend your environment. You must transcend knowledge, knowing, in order to know the truth of who you are. Consciousness, which is literally programs your awareness, which is the ultimate reality. Therefore, in order to change something in your external circumstances, whether it be your body, a relationship, a better health, or a possible future reality, you have to become a nobody, no thing, with no time, with no space. You're all freaking out. What do you mean, become a nobody? What do you mean, let go of my story? Pretty scary stuff. You have to do all of that in order to transcend the system of consciousness. And what will you be left with? Nothing but the full knowledge of the truth and who you are. Free of the system of consciousness. Free of the pain and suffering which consumes you. The agony through thinking and the thought process and the mind which are not yours. To use them to have this experience. Imagine what it would be like to be free of the system of consciousness. But you cannot just imagine it. You must experience it. This is what I experience. Therefore, to change any aspect of your life, again, your body, your environment, or time, you must what? Transcend body. You must transcend your environment and time, allowing you to detach from your present familiar reality in order to know and experience and feel the expansive awareness and eternal state that is you. When you are in full awareness, which is the ultimate reality, we are in the creation itself, which allows each of us to activate the brain's creative center, the frontal lobe, which is the part of the forebrain comprising the prefrontal cortex. Apparently, this is the newest, most evolved part of the human nervous system, and the most adaptable part of the brain. It tends to be the creative center of who we are from the conscious mind perspective, the brain's CEO of decision-making apparatus. That's what I believe the brain does. It provides the decision-making apparatus, but the intuitive knowing comes from the heart center. The frontal lobe is the seat of our attention, focus, concentration, observation, and consciousness. This is where we speculate on future possibilities, demonstrate firm intention, make conscious decisions, control impulsive and emotional behaviors, and learn new things. Yes, I do believe that is true. The frontal lobe performs 3 important functions. Metacognition, it can create a new mind, which allows us to think about new ways of being. That is, if you dare to do so. And finally, the frontal lobe makes thought more real than anything else. I believe that's true as well. Therefore, if you want to create a new self, you have to stop being the old self. That is why in the creation process, the first function of the frontal lobe is to become self-aware. So important. The power to observe our thoughts and self as awareness, which is the eternal state of nothingness, supported by the metacognitive ability, which allows us to decide how we want to be, to act, to feel. The ability to self-reflect allows us to scrutinize ourselves and then make a plan to modify our behaviors so that we can, produce more desirable outcomes. That is so important. Remember, your attention is where you place your energy. Therefore, to use your attention to empower your life, you will have to examine what you've already created. This is where you begin to know thyself. You look at your beliefs about your life, yourself, and others. You are what you are. You are where you are because of what you believe about yourself. That's why I constantly talk about doing the emotional body work and having to delete all those negative programs that you're operating on. But no one wants to do the emotional body work. That's the real work. It's not ayahuasca in order to, have altered states of experiences. No, you have to do that internal excavation work in order to know self and be able to sustain self as awareness, which is the eternal state. Your beliefs are the thoughts of what you believe about yourself. Your beliefs are the thoughts you keep consciously and unconsciously accepting as a law in your life, and whether you are aware of them or not, they still affect your reality. If you truly want to know who you are, start observing all aspects of your personality, since they are primarily operate below the level of conscious awareness, just like automatic software programs. You will have to go within and look at these elements you probably have not been aware of. Given that your personality comprises how you think, act, and feel, you must pay attention to your unconscious thought, reflexive behaviors, and automatic emotional reactions. Put them under observation to determine if they are true and whether you want to continue to endorse them with your energy. To become familiar with your unconscious states of mind takes an act of will, intention, and heightened awareness. If you become more aware, you will become more attentive. If you become more attentive, you will become more consciously aware. The purpose of becoming self-aware is so that you no longer let any thought, action, or emotion to pass your awareness by interrupting the feelings that are associated with those thoughts. You are no longer signaling genes in the same way. The goal is to learn who you are so that you can free up your energy to create a new life, a new personality. You can't create a new personal reality as the same personality. You have to become someone else. Metacognition is your first step in moving from your past to creating a new future. The second function of the frontal lobe is to create a new mind, that is to break out of the neural networks produced by the ways that your brain has been firing for years on end and influence it to restore in new ways. When we set aside time and private space to think about a new way of being, that is when the frontal lobe engages in creation. because the frontal lobe has connection to all other parts of the brain and is able to scan across all the neural networks. In closing, how will Ebola play out on the physical world stage? It will most likely be the biggest false flag we will witness on the physical world stage, and a major game changer for how we will experience life on Earth. Nothing to fear, just know you're being deceived through the Ebola meme, as the power control force weave their webs to deceive the masses into giving away their freedoms in order to circumvent their highest creative potential. Memes, they are bountiful, all designed to keep you from knowing the truth of who you are. See through the deception and use your lobes to create a reality of your own choosing and your own making. Thank you so much for tuning in.